amid the black pine-covered mountains of northern Montana. Winter arrived earlier than usual. The snow had not yet fallen heavily, but the cold had already spread through the ranching valleys along the forest edge. During the day, everything still seemed peaceful. Herds of cattle moved slowly across the last patches of dry grass left from the season. But once night fell, the atmosphere began to change. Dogs barked continuously near the northern fences. Long tracks appeared around the livestock pens, and within only a few nights, several young calves disappeared without leaving behind almost any sound at all. I arrived in the area after infrared cameras captured footage of a large wolf pack repeatedly appearing near the feed transport routes. What worried people was not only the number of wolves, but the way the pack moved. They did not rush in chaotically like desperate predators. Each wolf kept an exact distance from the others, moving along the dark forest edges before disappearing only seconds after being spotted. The alpha wolves seemed far too familiar with humans. They avoided lights, stayed clear of patrol routes, and appeared only in areas almost completely free of engine noise or the smell of fuel. That was when the wildlife control team decided to switch to an entirely different strategy. Instead of chasing the wolves directly, they began tracking the pack's entire movement pattern. Thermal cameras were installed along old trails where tracks appeared heavily after every light snowfall. Trap locations were no longer based on luck, but on how the wolves reacted to terrain, wind direction, and the safety distance they consistently maintained from humans. The first trap was placed deep inside a narrow travel corridor between two rocky hillsides. From a distance, it blended almost perfectly into the surrounding environment. There was no reflected metal, no unfamiliar scent, and no fresh disturbance on the ground. The wildlife officers wore special gloves and circled through streams to minimize any human scent left behind. They understood that even the smallest unusual detail could cause the entire pack to vanish from the area for weeks. The first 3 nights passed in complete silence. The cameras captured only gray shadows gliding along the forest edge before stopping to observe from far away. At times, one alpha wolf stood motionless for several minutes within the freezing mist, staring directly toward the trap as if testing every subtle change in the air. But on the 4th night, everything began to change. A younger wolf moved closer, slowly sniffing around the area before continuing into the narrow corridor.
Another black wolf was following just behind.
Only seconds later, the steel locking mechanism snapped shut in the stillness of night. When the control team returned at dawn, Whitebreast still drifted across the frozen ground. The trapped wolf continued pacing in circles inside the specialized steel trap, but the rounded frame absorbed the impact of its movements, preventing it from breaking free like it could from older trap designs. Most importantly, the rest of the pack did not panic and flee the area. Thermal cameras showed the remaining wolves still appearing throughout the valley during the following nights. That proved the new strategy was working. Instead of creating chaos that would teach the wolves to disappear completely, the system allowed officers to control individual animals without disrupting the entire movement pattern of the pack. But the longer people observed, the more they realized this was not simply a confrontation between humans and predators. The northern forests were changing rapidly. Snow melted earlier each year. Natural food sources continued to decline, and ransoms expanded deeper into wild territory. The wolves were not appearing out of curiosity. They were adapting in order to survive within an environment that was shrinking year after year. Far within the drifting fog, a long howl echoed across the dark mountain ridges. No one knew where the wolves would appear the following night. But in this unforgiving land, both humans and predators understood that the silent confrontation would continue through many more winters to come.
In less than a week, more than 40 head of livestock vanished from farms along the edge of the forest. No gunshots. No broken fences. Even the security cameras captured almost nothing except fleeting shadows moving through the darkness. What terrified people most was how perfectly everything happened. The attacks always came at the exact moment the area let its guard down, then disappeared before anyone could react. Every morning, all that remained was torn-up ground and overlapping tracks that looked like invisible pathways slowly closing in around the entire region. After nearly 2 weeks, the damage had spiraled out of control. Many ranchers started patrolling through the night with rifles, but it was almost useless. The wolf pack never attacked from the same direction twice in a row. They constantly changed their routes, slipping along narrow trails near the forest edge before vanishing long before patrol teams could catch up. Several chases followed, but they almost always ended the same way. The wolves moved with the precision of seasoned hunters, then disappeared without leaving a trace. When direct pursuit kept failing, the control team decided to switch tactics and set traps. Their first plan involved large cage traps placed along the routes the wolves frequently used. A live chicken was placed inside as bait. Every detail was carefully calculated, and every human trace was erased to avoid raising suspicion. But after nearly a week, every single cage trap remained empty. Not one wolf had taken the bait.
Sorry, Snow White.
As options slowly ran out, the team was forced to move on to foothold traps. Unlike the bulky cages, these traps were buried completely beneath soft soil along the wolves' regular travel paths. The first location was set where two routes crossed near the northern fence, a point the pack was almost guaranteed to pass every night. The trap was hidden beneath damp soil, covered with dry leaves, and treated carefully to eliminate any scent. Even the team's footprints around the area were wiped away before they left. The second location was far more dangerous. It was placed near the spot where a cow had been dragged away days earlier. Not in the middle of the clearing, but along the dark outer edge where the wolves often stopped to observe before moving in on prey. This area demanded near-perfect precision. A single trace of metal scent or one branch positioned unnaturally could cause the entire pack to change direction and disappear from the area for weeks. Then the next morning, while fog still blanketed the forest edge, the control team returned to inspect the traps. The ground had been completely torn apart, and a massive wolf had been caught directly on the route the pack had relied on for weeks. But the most chilling part was what came next. The remaining tracks immediately split apart and scattered deep into the forest, as if the pack understood that this place was no longer safe. After that incident, the attacks dropped sharply, but the wolves never fully disappeared. They expanded their territory, moved more unpredictably, and almost never reused the same paths. That forced the control system to constantly adapt. New cameras continued to be installed. Data kept being updated. Trap locations changed week after week. The confrontation never truly ended. And maybe that's what finally made people realize an unsettling truth. The wolves were never simply intruders. They were only trying to survive in a world that humans kept shrinking around them. As the line between wilderness and farmland slowly disappears, this conflict may continue for a very long time. Because the biggest question was never how powerful the traps were, but whether humans and nature still have enough space left to coexist.